Hey everybody, thanks for listening to the El Toro's podcast, exclusively now on Anchor.fm. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Here, let me explain. It's free. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on things like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. You can also make money from your podcast, which is always a plus, with no minimum listenership. And it's everything you need to make a podcast right at your fingertips and in one place. I can't believe it took me this long to switch over to Anchor.fm, but I couldn't be happier now. So, get yourself started and download the free Anchor app now, or go to Anchor.fm to get started.
Finest professional wrestling from the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic region, Capital Wrestling.
Welcome to episode 18 of the Capital Wrestling Podcast. I'm your host, Sean O'Brien. You can follow us on Twitter at Capital Wrestling without the G. You can follow me on Twitter at Sean Neutron. We're here every Wednesday afternoon at 12 o'clock on soundcloud.com/LTours podcast. If you haven't bought your tickets yet for the July 29th show coming up, our debut from Hoboken, New Jersey, go to brownpaperticket.com and search Capital Wrestling, next stop Hoboken. You can also find us live on the GFQ network every Saturday evening, 6:05. Mondays, we have replays on irwnetwork.com and pivotshare.com, so go check us out there. The July 29th debut from the Hopes Community Center is going to be doors open at 6 p.m. The show starts at 7. There's going to be a stacked card. This is the Road to Hoboken we're talking about. It's going to be main evented by Anthony Gangone and Maxwell Jacob Friedman. So it's a huge matchup right there. A little bit later in the show, we're going to talk to DJ Hyde, who will be taking on the Pain Train Preston Quinn. Battle of the Hosses as it's being billed. Originally, Andrew Zarian was supposed to take part in the show, but he's sick, so hope you feel better, Andrew, and we'll talk to you next week. And he's going to be on the same episode with Brutal Bob Evans, and Bob is going to talk to his seminar. Right now it's $30. There's about 5 or 6 spots left at this time, so go hop on that offer real quick. Go to Capital Wrestling on Twitter and check that out. That's going to be from 3 to 5 o'clock on Saturday afternoon, July 29th, prior to the show. And our first guest tonight is going to be facing the Endgame, Paul Jordane, at our next show. He's none other than the Concrete Rose, Sonny Kiss. How's it going, Sonny?
Hey guys, what's going on? How are you?
Oh, we're doing great, man. It's great to have you on here. I know that, like I said, it was on the fly, but you were able to adjust it and come on the show today. So really, thank you so much.
Yes, and thank you for having me.
So what have you been up to lately, man?
Just wrestling, working, living a simple life too. Like I'm kind of like enjoying simple life sometimes. So that's pretty cool.
Keeping it low key at times.
Yeah, keeping it low key, I would say. Yeah, I'm just in the gym and work and then all that stuff. So. But I'm still managing my booking and stuff. But yeah, definitely like kind of like using time to relax a little bit more rather than always trying to like be on the go and do something. Yeah,
I saw you were at the beach the other day. What beach was that?
That was Point Pleasant Beach, and obviously I went with my Newton crew. Shout out to them. I love them so much. So I went with them, and that was just a blast. Like, it was literally a day for us to, as much as we love wrestling to death, like we definitely needed that time to ourselves, that time to wind down.
Yeah, I mean, you guys are always on the go, so definitely any relaxing time is much welcome.
Yeah, Friday off is kind of like awesome in wrestling. It's just like no, none of that crazy slow traffic, and then heading into the to the city or whatever because you're mad and then you're exhausted, and there's a lot to it. You know, even though we love it, but it's definitely work as well. So.
Because then afterwards, like that point, like you said, you're exhausted, and you really don't want to do much afterwards, probably than just go chill.
Yeah, absolutely. That's kind of like how it goes. Yeah.
But as an independent wrestler, you said you do. You're also doing the Clark Kent job, the work. What kind of stuff is that?
As far as work, like besides wrestling, I'm a receptionist at a condominium, a residential community.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, I work overnight. I just that's all night long and answer phone calls. Like that usually never come.
That's usually a pretty mellow contrast to the bright lights of professional wrestling.
Right. It definitely is.
And you're used to I guess the odd hours. So I mean, and then I guess that allows you to do a lot of the training during the day, and so you're all set for the for wrestling.
Yeah, I use like the nighttime, while I'm at work. I use that to center myself and to get grounded and to write. I write a lot, definitely. Whether it's poetry, whether it's music or whatever. I like to definitely write, get centered, pray, do what I have to do as far as that. Keeping myself grounded in, normal times when, things get tough or things get rough or whatever. And that's kind of like what I do, yeah.
Maybe think of stuff like marketing ideas for T-shirts and just the various ideas how to brand yourself.
Absolutely, yeah. Also taking time to do that, brainstorm ideas, etc. A bunch of different stuff.
Yeah, like you said, plenty of time to do that. I mean, I've definitely been there before, having the late night jobs, and no one really bothers you, so that's a good thing.
Yeah, I have a lot of really awesome residents that'll come in and talk to me for hours. And I also have friends that stay up with me all night and they'll call me on the phone hey. So it's definitely cool to that, having them around or having them to keep me up and keep me focused or whatever. But as far as outside my time, I do a really good job at that. It's difficult though, I'm not gonna lie, because our bodies are not meant to be awake through those hours. Our body's meant to sleep, obviously, nighttime. So it's definitely weird. Some days, I'll get adjusted to it for a month or 2 or 3 or whatever, and then after a while, it's I'll start feeling this little slump of tiredness every time I go into work, and then that passes. So it's definitely a weird thing to get used to, and it definitely totally screws up your sleeping pattern. But I make it work. Yeah, I mean I have to do what I have to do to pay bills, because I'm still a free agent. I'm not signed yet, unfortunately. So just do what I have to do in the meantime.
Yeah, I mean, it's not easy to find your REM sleep at 2 p.m. in the afternoon.
Oh, absolutely.
Now, in the world of wrestling, you have a lot going on, and I think, was it next month you'll be in Lucha Toronto?
That's correct. Yes, I will.
So you're officially going international. Is that your first international date, or have you been overseas before?
It's not. No, I've been in Canada before. Canada's the only other country besides the States, yeah. But I've been in Canada before a few times.
And what's your thoughts on that and that opportunity, and how did it come about?
That came about because this motor contacted me a couple of weeks ago, and he was like, yeah, no, I've been looking at you too. This motor. I so regret his name. It's terrible. I should have been prepared with this, but yeah, no. He contacted me and was like, yeah, no. Definitely looking forward to booking you and stuff like that. But I've done C4 before. I've done Greek Town, and so it's not the first time I've been there. I think this is my fourth. Something like that.
Oh, so
yeah, no, the photo was very, very nice. Yeah, myself and Mike Orlando will be going.
And
it should be an amazing time.
And have that passport stamped again.
Yeah, absolutely.
The CWP normally stands for the Capital Wrestling Podcast, but this week it stands for the Cultured Wrestling Podcast.
Yeah.
But now switching gears to Capital Wrestling, we're 2 shows in. We had the last show was on June 3rd, and what are your thoughts on the product as a whole?
I love the product so much. Capital Wrestling, honestly, in just 2 shows, it has done so well. Matt and Marcus worked really, really hard, and I'm just so I'm so happy for them, and I just know it's only gonna go uphill from here, and I'm just really excited to be a part of it, and so I can't wait to see what's to come.
And obviously the first show saw you were one half of Fab You Kiss with Ed McQueen. You guys lost to New York Wrecking Crew to some nefarious means. And then the next show, last year you faced Ken Dixon, and he also came away with the win. So what's that like? I guess what was the biggest difference in between both shows? Not just the matches, but the atmosphere, everything as a whole.
Yeah, even though I lost, the fans were insane for, my entrance and everything. Like, they were just so wild. And honestly, like, that's what really mattered to me, was entertaining them. And, whether I win or lose, honestly, like, I'm just so happy being performing in front of my hometown. Though next time I won't be, and next show, July 29th, I won't be, but it's okay. It's still my area, still my people. I'm a Jersey boy for life, so I'm excited.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, like the last show, I think Ken Dixon had been pretty aggressive in his promos before the match, and had a lot of things to say. And then you guys had the match, and he wins. He comes up with the win. So what were your thoughts on that match, and then also talk about the moment you had afterwards on the microphone?
I met him at FIP. It's crazy because we all know the date, myself and the six online. It's 10/23/15, and we always talk about how it was just an awesome day. But his promo was pretty interesting. He's actually proved himself because he's still won, even though he's cheated. But obviously that's what they have to do to be Sonny Kiss is to see. So I don't know. Yeah, it's whatever. I can't be a sore loser. He won. That's all I can say. But maybe next time it'll be different.
But you got on the microphone after that match, and you had some heartfelt words for the crowd, and then had a promise in your next match. And what was that promise?
That if I lost at Capitol again, that I would never perform. Yeah. So I know I kind of reached the stakes a little bit. Specifically my hometown, but I guess now the show is in Hoboken, which is still okay because it's still in front of the Capital Wrestling crowd, and so I mean this time around I just know like I have to prove to them that that I'm not just a loser. I'm gonna definitely give it my all next time and make sure I come out with the win. So.
I mean, no one.
And I might have a surprise.
A surprise? What?
Yeah, I can't give you a lot of details about it. It's definitely a surprise. You may or may not see a live video this week.
Oh, okay.
If you know my background, I'm kind of out.
Yeah, so we'll stay tuned to your Facebook and your Twitter for that, but...
Yeah, stay tuned, because it is going to be quite the experience. Something to watch for, absolutely.
Well, keeping us on the edge of our seats, but you never want, as a wrestler, you never want to lose any match. But the fact that you lost in front of your hometown fans and family, what is that? How much more pressure does that place on you to win this time around, even without your promo?
It's definitely a lot of pressure, because the Kiss crew, and not only that, it's in front of my people. This is where I grew up, so I have to be that role model. And obviously, role models don't lose, or when they do lose, they obviously triumph. They always come back, and they have this big comeback, and they prove to everyone that they are the role model, and that's kind of what I want to do. So I definitely feel that I'm carrying my city, carrying my area on my back, and I definitely want to prove to them that I do have that leadership and that I can be a winner, and that's what I'm gonna do. So it's not really it's pressure, but I'm handling it well, and I know I'm gonna make everyone proud, and I just can't wait to prove it to them.
Now it was
prove it to the Capital Wrestling fans and obviously Capital Wrestling staff. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now it was recently announced, actually Monday, that your opponent for this next show will be the Endgame, Paul Jordane, who made his debut at the last Capital Wrestling show and came out with no frills and destroyed Ryan Zane. What were your thoughts on Paul Jordane's performance last show?
I'm definitely looking forward to working with him. I definitely haven't seen him prior to Capital, so it's interesting. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. We definitely have a complete different style as far as wrestling, and regardless of his size, I just I'm ready. I'm ready for a fight.
Mm-hmm.
So gotta get ready.
So what's your advantage? Obviously he has the power game. What is your advantage over him?
Obviously, athleticism. Definitely, I would say I'm one of the most athletic guys on the roster. So, definitely, I'm going to use that to my advantage. I'm going to use my quickness, my speed, my agility. And, yeah, I'm going to use the crowd, my people
Mm-hmm.
to, like, get in the fun a little bit, So, yeah, I just can't wait to, like, prove everyone wrong, or prove everyone that I can do this, prove the haters wrong, and then prove to the fans that I am that rightful leader. And I am, and I'm going to do it.
So I don't have a crystal ball in front of me, but I always try to be a positive person. So I don't want to think that you're going to lose and have to not wrestle in Capital Wrestling ever again. But say you do win at the next show, where do you think that puts you on the totem pole of Capital Wrestling?
It definitely proves that obviously when I'm obviously one of the most athletic guys on the roster. I definitely worked hard regardless of my losses, because if you look at both losses, they were definitely flukes, because clearly they're both shows my opponent cheated to win.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it was the use of other people, outside interferences, or I mean, a win is a win. So I guess I can't necessarily justify it. At the same time, it'll show you that those victories were flukes, and that I am capable of being champion. I am capable of leading Capital Wrestling. So I'll just let my talent speak for itself. I'll let the match speak for itself, and I'll let the win speak for itself, because I will be winning. So.
And obviously, not to spoil anything, but have you been changing your moveset or adding anything to your moveset to try to pull out all the stops against Paul?
Maybe not. You'll see. I mean, you never know with me. I mean, I'm the concrete rose, so that means I'm salty, I'm sweet, I'm tough, I'm eccentric. So, there's definitely going to be a move that'll come out in here or there that
Mm-hmm.
maybe whoa.
Well, we know you're very dynamic, and we know you're very there's full potential. So there's being from Jersey City, and this is, I guess, will be your first time wrestling Hoboken. What do you know about Hoboken in general?
Oh my God, I actually despite growing up in Jersey City and living here my entire life, I used to literally I have tons of friends and family in Hoboken, and I would walk around Hoboken late at night with my friends all night long, and we'd be hanging out, walking up and down Washington, and Hoboken is my second home.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, it's not much different than performing in Jersey City, and I can't really.
Yeah. What are the spots to go to, whether it's restaurants or just general spots that you would suggest?
Oh my God, Benny's Pizza, definitely. Everywhere though, I don't know.
Everywhere, every single square inch of Hoboken.
Exactly, literally, the square mile, that 1 square mile. Hoboken is legit 1 square mile. So, yeah, that's everywhere. Honestly, if you watch the app, you will see everything, all the good restaurants. I also got my yoga certification in Ocean Yoga in Hoboken.
Uh-huh. So, sounds like we're going to be seeing a Sonny Kiss or Concrete Rose yoga studio.
Maybe. Sunny Yoga will be debuting one day. I promise my fans that. My fans have been asking me, and I have been so rude to them when it comes to my fitness tips to my body and everything like that. But I promise, it's true. I got you guys. One day, Sunny Yoga will be put on the map. Absolutely.
Now, before we get out of here, do you have any parting words for your opponent, your upcoming opponent, Paul Jordane?
No, all I can say is July 29th at Capital Wrestling is time to get Sunny Licious. That's all I'm gonna say. And I can't wait to surprise my fans, the Kiss Crew, Hoboken, my second home, and all my friends and family, and all the fans that and show them that's what's been missing this whole time. And maybe my A game wasn't always there for
Mhm.
2 shows, but I can't wait to show them what they've been missing and, what's been missing in me. It's gonna come out. Like, I promise you that.
Well, we look forward to seeing it, and it's going to be, honestly, in my mind, it's a potentially a really dynamic matchup, and I'm really excited. Once I heard about it, just got my mind racing of just what kind of match you guys can put on. And actually, I have another venture, the Squared Circle Sound Off, which is my other wrestling podcast at WLWstudios.com, and I'll be sponsoring your match with Paul Jordane, so and that's how much I believe in this match.
Oh, awesome.
So
That's good news.
proud sponsor of this upcoming match. And, once again, I want to thank you for coming on the show and, being one of the repeat guests on the show. So definitely a staple of Capital Wrestling. And that's why I think there's a lot of people pulling for you to win. And so we want to see you again and again.
And you also want to do that
Well, of course we do it. So we're going to have to wait until July 29th, about a little under a month from now. But before we get out of here, also, just run down your schedule again for the fans, upcoming shows, merchandise. I think you had a new T-shirt.
Yes. My piece that I've been advertising recently was just a sneak peek. So if you guys are wondering if it's why it's not on my Pro Wrestling Tees store, that's because it hasn't been released yet. But ProWrestlingTees.com/Sonny Kiss, you can find some Sonny Delicious merchandise there. And you guys can find me coming up. I just did BTW. I lost my last match to Azrael. He's going to be moving on to the tournament. So good luck to him because Azrael is definitely very deserving of it. He's definitely one of the guys I look up to in independent wrestling. So good luck to him and good luck to BTW. What's coming up next? I will be at Warriors Wrestling this coming weekend. The BBWF is also coming up, so if you're in that area too, definitely check that out. Tier 1 is also running again July 28th, a day before Capital Wrestling. Before I be at Capital Wrestling, I will also be at Forza Lucha Wrestling, which is in Newark, so that's, our neighbors, Hoboken, Jersey City, Newark.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're in that area, it's an afternoon show, so if you're willing to go, both shows, you got some time in between. So, and you'll definitely see some of the Capital Wrestling roster at Forza Lucha as well. So look forward to that. Then right after Capital, I'm leaving right to Canada for Lucha Toronto, Sunday, June 30th. And then my friends at Battle Club Pro and Wrestlers Laboratory, definitely check that out. That's going to be an amazing weekend.
Yeah, I've heard really good things about Battle Club Pro.
Yes, it's an amazing promotion. It's really good atmosphere, really great booking. It's amazing. Really good storytelling. I love those promotions so much. They were like sister promotions to Tier 1 Wrestling, so I definitely know the promoters closely, and I go up to them. So yeah. Also, SWO 302, CTW, those are all coming up.
And
for wrestling, I'll be up again in SWF. There's a lot. Well, I won't give you guys the rundown for the entire year.
Yeah, let's we're gonna do the rundown until 2018.
Well, that's kind of about it. Yeah. SWF, Dynasty, Keystone Pro, Warriors Wrestling. There's a lot of Warriors Wrestling here. On Point. I was back at On Point again soon, so I'm excited for that.
So pretty much it's the world tour here. The world tour of Sonny. I'm sorry. It's the world tour of Sonny Kiss.
Yes, the Sonny Licious world tour is in effect. Like, we are on foot.
Now, are you going to be driving to Canada or flying?
I will be driving. Myself and Mike Orlando will be driving together. Yes.
Oh wow, it's gonna be a hell of a road trip.
Yeah, it's about 8 hours, but it's worth it. And oh my gosh, Toronto is a beautiful city. Like, it's literally their version of New York City, and it's amazing.
Well,
it is amazing.
Really happy that you'll get to go there, and like I said, maybe earlier in the show, maybe I'll get to go there someday soon and brush up in maybe Montreal, brush up on my French. But it was really good to have you on the show. And where can fans find you on Twitter, social media?
Instagram.com/Sonny Kiss, Facebook.com/SonnyKiss1. That's about it. Yeah,
Awesome.
I have social medias.
There.
My Snapchat, that's private for me to know and not for you to not know. Just because fans like to get a little overzealous, a little too cray-cray.
Yeah. So you do have to create some sort of buffer.
But otherwise, yeah. Otherwise, yeah, that's about it. You can follow me on social media at those URLs there. So, yeah.
And our next guest will be debuting July 29th versus Preston Quinn. He's the owner of CZW. He is DJ Hyde. How's it going, DJ?
How are you, Sean? Thank you for having me on.
Oh, my pleasure, man. Great to have you. I know you're a busy man, so it's good to just get some of your time.
No worries. I'll definitely make time for you.
What you been up to lately?
Working. Pretty much establishing CZW's direction for next year. Obviously, with CZW, we have some pretty big events coming up. Our next event is July 8th, which is Evolution. We have a bit of a change in creative and much different direction than following up with that with our once-in-a-lifetime event, Matt Tremont versus Onita. Onita's first visit to the U.S. in almost 2 decades, and a lot of big-time things going on with us, as well as working with the United Wrestling Network and establishing what that is going to be and how we are going to grow.
I mean, as a promoter and wrestler, I mean, you're thinking more big picture and more scope of things. I guess you're used to not just, pigeonholing yourself in anything.
Well, I mean, I run the Combat Zone Wrestling dojo, the training facility. I mean, I have for the last decade and a half. Ish. I've developed a system with something called Dojo Wars. I don't know if fans are familiar with it, but some of the talents that you'll definitely see on the Capitol show have been through our Dojo Wars system. It's I'm trying to get to where I want to be. I'm not quite there yet, but with a little bit of help, a little bit of luck, and some great support of the great fans out there of professional wrestling, we're going to get there, and we're going to give them a great product with CZW and hopefully everybody else in the United Wrestling Network.
So I believe the Dojo Wars, it's every Wednesday. It's like $5.
Dojo Wars is every Wednesday at the Dojo, 110 Harmon Drive, Blackwood, New Jersey. It is $5, and then once a month we do something called a Super Show, which is $10. It's more of the pay-per-view style of a show. Little added bonuses. And then we do a mega show once a year and coincide with CZW's Cage or Death, which is our biggest event of the year.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you got Cage of Death, Tournament of Death. There's a lot going on there in CZW, and we'll get to that in just a little bit. With you personally, I mean, you started out years ago as a college athlete playing football, but then you unfortunately suffered a very serious injury. Talk about your mindset back then and the adversity you went through, and bouncing back and being able to come back and wrestle after that.
I was a 4-year All-American high school football player. I was big, I was fast, and I was good. And basically, I had a full college scholarship. My first day there, I got hurt. I tore my MCL and ACL and 9 other ligaments in my right leg. Within about 6 months, I put on a lot of weight, an insane amount of weight, to be honest. And you're in a wheelchair, and it's going from surgery to surgery, and you're a kid. At that point, I was barely 18 years old and not really knowing what I was going to do with my life at that point. And, after all the surgeries and finally walking, getting rehabbed and dealing with personal situations, I found professional wrestling. It was one of the few things I can say that in my life that always was a steady, probably since a very early age, that I loved more than anything. But you got to understand that was probably about almost 20 years ago now. And, wrestling schools at that point were like, $5,000, and you didn't really know that there was a ton of them near you. And, I kind of stumbled into it the old-fashioned way where wrestlers started training me on the road, and then it grew from there, and meeting people, going to different schools and making connections. And, the short story of that is now I've traveled the world. I've worked for WWE. I've been everywhere you can possibly want to be at one time or another. And, it has made me who I am today.
Yeah, now you talk about, what were some of your inspirations in terms of wrestling from an early age and just and up until today?
Early age, easily Hulk Hogan. I was a Hulkamaniac growing up. I was one of those, red and yellow, ripping the shirt kind of kids. I was totally into that. Now my family's from down south, so I got into the NWA. Guys like Dusty Rhodes and Ric Flair were definitely some inspirations early.
Mm-hmm.
As time grew on, and obviously I learned more and more about the world of professional wrestling. I'm a big fan of the ECW generation. I think ECW for me influenced a lot of today's generation and what wrestling is, as well as the Japanese style. Guys like Kobashi and Stan Hansen and things like that. And my character was influenced by JBL a little bit as a heel, as a bad guy.
Mm-hmm.
I've taken a lot of inspiration from a lot of different guys, and now as the scene is huge and as big as it is now, you're always finding inspiration. You never stop learning. You never stop, creating something new as a professional wrestler, as well as somebody who's developing professional wrestlers and developing talent for the future and writing his own events from men's and women's. So it's I have a lot of inspiration. I've learned a lot from a lot of different people, and it constantly grows. It's 1 minute I think, okay, here's the right direction. Then I learn something new, and I go, oh, wow, this is different. I never thought this. And, through almost my 2 decades now of being around and in this industry, it's definitely something that has changed me over time.
So it's constantly evolving.
Yeah, it never stops. And I think wrestling now has changed so much. And it's always hard trying to stay, a step ahead of the game. And, I think I've done fairly well with that. I've made a lot of mistakes, though, and it has cost me dearly at times. And, sometimes, though, things have paid off for me. So, I just look forward to what the future is and now, into where my career goes from here. And, I could sit here and go on long, wind-gated rants, and anybody who knows me knows that that's what I normally do. But, there's always going to be another guy. There's always going to be somebody else to look up to. And right now, it's more about learning different aspects of the industry and where I really am and where I'm going to go as time grows on, as I develop as a wrestler, a promoter, and a trainer.
And you mentioned back in the day trying to find training, and it was like about $5,000. How difficult was it?
It still is about $5,000 at some places.
Oh.
It's very difficult.
Mm-hmm.
But when I was growing up, realistically, I knew of 2 schools. You had the Wild Samoans and you had the Monster Factory. And funny enough, I've actually trained at both of them at this point.
Mm-hmm.
I'm especially with the Samoans. I have a very good relationship with Afa and Samu, and I've worked for them as a talent and some behind the scenes things too. But back then, when you're a kid and you're sitting here thinking $5,000 to you, at that time, you also got to remember I'm almost 20 years into wrestling. It's $5,000 now is a lot of money.
Yeah, yeah.
$5,000 back then was probably like what $10,000 is now.
That's a good point.
It's definitely a change. It definitely was very difficult, and nothing was really local to me. Nothing was like, oh, I could go 20 minutes up the street, or it's in my area, or even in my state.
Mm-hmm.
And everything was a 2 or 3 hour drive, and real life sets in, and it came down to when I stumbled upon it was how bad do you really want it? And I went out there and I worked hard for it, and I got made connections, made relationships, and built them from there, and that's how I got the train.
Yeah, like you said, it cost so much at that time, and there was no Google, there was no Yelp. You had kind of word of mouth, I guess.
Pretty much. The internet really wasn't like as what it is today. I remember the days of dial-up. Some people probably can't picture that. I remember having a pager, and not a cell phone. And now we have smartphones that can do amazing things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I came through it where I had been going to wrestling events probably since I was 5 years old, almost on a monthly basis at that point.
Mm-hmm.
I was fortunate enough to grow up in an area where professional wrestling was prominent, as well as a family that supported it very well and loved professional wrestling. Like me and my father, it's one of the things that we did together, which was very few and far between because we don't have a lot of things in common. But wrestling was something that always, we would sit down and watch Saturday night's main event, and and I can remember being young and being like 7 years old and having a hot box just so we could watch, WrestleManias or pay-per-views at that time when they first started coming out. I remember going to a movie theater just to watch the very first WrestleMania, which is not something, the normal kid would do. And it developed my passion and love for this business, but it's not something when you're young, and at that time in the industry was very much more kayfabe. Very harder to find things. And like I said, I was not trained originally at a wrestling dojo. I was not at a school or an academy. I was trained on the road. I was trained the old school style, broken in by wrestlers, where you're being trained a couple hours before the show, and this is how you do this, and the very meticulous way of doing things. And like I said, at that time, things like the Wild Samoans and the Monster Factory were far, and they were pipe dreams to me. Mm-hmm. And now, I've been fortunate enough that I've been through both of their systems. I know the people who own them and train people there very, very well and have great relationships with them. So it's one of those things of where, it was, here was this opportunity and this is what I wanted to do. And then I made it my whole life. And barring my wife and, my family, wrestling is my entire life. It's nothing else I do.
Yeah, and from what I've seen in the past, I mean, she's very supportive, and as is your family, obviously, with having the tournament of death, like from your parents. Is your parents' farm in Delaware?
Yeah, down on the farm. So I'm very, very fortunate that my family supports what I do. But professional wrestling, it supports me. It pays my mortgage. It pays my phone bill, and it's how I eat and how I live. So I got to be pretty good at it. And with having my family support me, it has really helped me along the way to get to the journey where I am.
And you've mentioned like your inspiration from ECW. At what point does it do you feel like you could be a deathmatch wrestler? I mean, where does that click for you?
I never looked at things like, I have to be a deathmatch wrestler. Obviously, in CZW, when I got there and it became my home, it became, where. Like, for me, like I said, I kind of grew up in that ECW generation, and I was wrestling and being a fan of CZW. I was already on smaller companies and their shows that weren't quite what CZW was, and I was going as a fan, and I kind of thought that this was, ECW reborn and on steroids and taken to a new level. And I kind of thought that was where I needed to be. Now, growing up and being around down the industry and being, in what we're doing, I looked at things and like, okay, well, if you want to be the guy at the top of the game, you got to be able to do a gimmick match. You got to be able to handle that environment, whether it's a steel cage, whether it's, tables, ladders, and chairs, whatever it was. It really didn't matter. And when the opportunity arose, I was like, yeah, sure, I'll do it. And kind of getting my feet wet, got into it a little, did a little here, and then really stepped it up and was like, all right, well, it ain't as bad as people, think it really is. It's like, I can handle this. I'm a pretty tough guy. And, if I want to be this guy, I gotta venture down this world. And when you're going to go in, it's go hard or go home. It's all or nothing. And I went in there and it was just, okay, this is what we're going to do. And then being in a company like CZW and making that like, hey, this is where you want to be, there are times where you're going to have to step up to that challenge of doing some kind of death match. As I looked up to guys like Triple H and The Undertaker and stuff like that, when I would watch them, and I watch them to this day, those are gimmick match guys. Shawn Michaels made his name in a ladder match, those were the things that I kind of realized, like, hey, I better be able to do this. And, looking back on it, yeah, it was cool and scary and like, oh, man. And I'll tell people now, like, don't do, like, I train people, and I am the owner of CZW now, and I'm like, no, you're not doing death matches. Just shut up and sit down. I'll just tell them no. But in the long run, it was the right thing for me. And now there are guys that, like, they have experienced things like that. I think, I'll say Sami Callihan is one of the best wrestlers in the world, and Sami Callihan, he's been in death matches against me, and he's also worked for WWE. You got guys like Dean Ambrose and Kevin Owens, they've been in that scenario with me. I've wrestled both of those guys in those scenarios. It's you're starting to look at them and go, okay, these are why these guys are at the top. you know, and that's just using a couple that I think fans out there would really know. I mean, I could sit here and list a number of other guys.
Yeah.
And then you'll kind of see that once you kind of enter into that realm and you're a guy that can do everything, it's, hey, here's this. Oh, he can do all this too, or he can do all this. Their stock starts to rise. They start getting more bookings. They start getting more attention and things along those lines. It's just a matter of developing them and teaching them for the right reasons, for the right time, at the right purpose. And you know, it's how I kind of got into it. I mean, and then, like, at the time, John Zandig owned CZW, so it was kind of like if he said you were doing it, you're doing it. And, you know, it is what it is. So now I'm much older and, you know, much more experienced, and, you know, I would not recommend it unless you're doing it for the right reason. But for me, overall, it was a pretty positive experience.
What was your first, like, oh shit moment?
When the Necro Butcher punched me right in the face. There was one of those times where we did something called the Ultraviolent Underground, and I did like a deathmatch series to earn a spot to wrestle the Necro Butcher. And Necro at the time was like, I mean, he's the Necro Butcher. He's iconic. He's, you know, in the deathmatch realm. And there was no fans. And I remember the very beginning of it, we did something, I don't remember what it was, and he just punched me right in the face, and you heard it go like that. And you can hear the camera guy, he's going, and I was like, okay, so we're here, this is for real. And then Necro proceeded to beat me with every possible thing you could think of. It was always like, I mean, there was a trash can full of light tubes that he threw at me and hit me with. I mean, barbed wire. I think we did just about everything that was around that was possible except fire. I mean, we did it all. And he just, I mean, it was a fight. It wasn't like, hey, I'm out there and I'm wrestling this guy and you're doing holds and trading back. No, this was a physical, like, I'm going to beat your ass, and that's just how it is. And that's when I realized, like, okay, you know, if you can hold here with this guy, you can go with anybody. And it was it was one of those like, oh, wow, this is for real. And then you just got to step up and, you know, be that guy. And, you know, looking back at it, you know, I think I've done that quite well.
I remember hearing, you know, things like you can't learn how to fall off a 20-foot ladder, and I'm sure you can't learn how to, you know, take a set of light bulbs to the back or head, but...
You can. You actually can. There are ways and techniques in professional wrestling to do things. I happen to know a lot of them because I was taught by other people.
What's the safest way to take a light bulb, or the big light bulb thing?
It depends on first off, certain types of bulbs you don't want to take. That's one thing. There are techniques. One, it's not just you, it's the guy hitting you with it. So if you're going to take a light tube, hypothetically, and you're going to, you know, one, you don't want those little skinny things because they're dangerous. They break like tree branches. That's how guys get cut really bad.
Ooh.
Two, they crumble. So if you take it across the back, all you got to do is basically hold your breath, because when the dust comes out, that's what's really dangerous. The glass is going to cut, yes, but it's not bad. You want to make sure the guy that's swinging it is hitting it flush, though. So it's in the middle. You don't want to land on those ends. And then when you're wrestling in it, there's other techniques. There's techniques to like you'll notice when guys, like if you watch any Japan death matching, especially like Big Japan type stuff or FMW, you'll see Big Japan does something. Their big match is called a 444 match, at which the word 4 stands for the same thing as death. They call it the triple death, and they use 444 light tubes. The entire ring is covered. Usually when they start that, they're walking around crushing the tubes, and they're crushing the glass down. Because if it's flat, it's not going to stick up and cut you. There's a lot of different techniques. I mean, that's just a couple of little things, but there's so many different techniques. There's ways to do things. When you swing it, there's ways to swing a light tube to make it less dangerous. Now that's crazy if you think about it, and you're like, hey, I never knew that. Yeah, there is. There's ways to do things. And some guys just know, oh, I'm going to full-fledged go and blast this guy like I'm swinging for... No, man. No. There are ways to do things, and there are techniques. I mean, that's really not my world, but but I know a lot about it, obviously, because I've been involved in it. You know, it's like with our wrestling school, a lot of people think that's what we teach people, and I'm sitting here going, yeah, guys like Dean Ambrose and Adam Cole and, what is Kimberly calling herself now? Abby Lance, Mia Yim. Yeah, these people have come out of our dojo.
Mm-hmm.
I've never seen Adam Cole get hit with a light tube one day in my life, and I think he's one of the best wrestlers in the world, A lot of people come to us because they want to get finished, but a lot of fans have that perception of that's all they do. That's not what we do. I mean, if you look at a 20th of the WWE roster, they've come through my program, one way or another.
Rich Swann, Drew Gulak.
Rich Swann, Drew Gulak. Cesaro's been with us. Chris Hero or Cassius Ohno's been with us. God damn it, how do I pronounce Big Busic's name? Only Larkin. Roderick Strong's been through there. I mean, there's Kevin Owens, AJ Styles, Dean Ambrose. I mean, just to name a couple. I mean, I could keep going on and on. Tony Nese and Lindsay Dorado. All these guys have been through what we're doing at one point or another. So and like I said, there's more. I'm just going off the cuff. But when people think of us, I think they see that the tournament of death. Yes, we do that. We do that because 2,000 people show up to the middle of nowhere in Townsend, Delaware.
Mm-hmm.
And pay $25 to watch guys do this. I don't see any company drawing 2,000 people at all that's not on national television. That's a challenge, and the fact that we can do that without bringing in, superstar, we're not bringing in Mick Foley, and nothing against Mick. I think he's a phenomenal guy and phenomenal talent. But, we're doing this with our guys, guys that are in the genre. But on the opposite end of that, we have Best of the Best, which this year was WrestleMania weekend, and you have guys like Brian Cage and Ricochet and Will Ospreys and Desmond Xavier's and Sammy Callahan's and Jake and Dave. I mean, Shane Strickland's. You have the guys that are like these are the guys that are at the top of the game everywhere, all in this, and they're all here.
That's the one thing I've noticed is the change in not just pigeonholing yourself to the death match, but you have guys like Leo Rush, Davey Richards, Maxwell Jacob Friedman, as your champions, and it's definitely been a huge shift and just a really smart way to go.
Well, we've kind of been going on and off about that for a couple of years. It's really hard because now, and this is not just me saying, hey, and we're the greatest thing in the world. CZW has a lot of exposure. We're known internationally. We're known all over the world. We lose guys.
Mm-hmm.
You make Drew Gulak your champion. WWE signs him. Adam Cole's the guy. Ring of Honor signs him. You build up someone like Pepper Parks and Cherry Bomb. And I'm just using them because they're known. So it's really tough to keep that mainstay of guys and girls and keep them going. It's once you make them a star, it's here's this next guy. They get a little bit of buzz, and then all of a sudden, here comes the big time major players, and they're going to be like, oh wait, this guy's pretty good. They're going to bring him in, and then you kind of lose him, and you got to move on, and you got to replace him, and you got to go to the next guy.
Mm.
I expect in the next 2 years, there's a lot of guys you're not going to be seeing that are currently on my roster.
Mm-hmm.
It's that ever evolving chain of talent, and that's why I've built the system that I have through the Dojo Wars program, and building it up to, hey, here's where you start, here's our developmental, here's our NXT, basically. And here it's designed for training, and it's designed to be small, and within the dojo it is done purposely. So if you can't get over there, why am I going to put you on a main show? If you can't get it here, you're not going there. It's a big challenge to try and get where I want to go in the vision that I have. So, but we're going to get there one way or another. It went very slow in the beginning, and now we're starting to flip that switch a little bit faster.
Yeah, so in 2009, you purchased it from Zandig. What was your vision at the time, and what made you believe you had the ability and the talent to look at it from a big picture kind of thing instead of just as a wrestler?
Well, part of it at the time was, I looked at it, and I already had inklings of starting my own smaller thing and functioning it through CZW in some way. I already had the hey, I want to do this. This is the direction. As I've gotten older, I worked with World Wrestling Entertainment for a little bit. I lost the job on my own. I made a mistake, got myself fired, didn't think I was ever going to go back. At that point, I'm in my 30s, and I'm going, okay, what am I going to do with the rest of my life? And thinking to myself, like, okay, your wrestling career is only going to last for so long, maybe another 15 years at best. At that time, it's one of those, like, okay, I know I'm not going to be able to do this for the rest of my life and go out here and get in that ring and go and do a 20-minute match or whatever. I know that's not feasible. So then I went, okay, well, being the owner or being a booker or being, is the other way to go. The opportunity came up to purchase CZW, one of the top promotions in the world. Built-in audience, it already had everything I needed. And at the time, I looked at it like, oh, these are my friends, and these are the guys that are going to support me. And, I took it as a promoter. It took me about 2 years to figure out that guys weren't my friends. Guys were about themselves. And, mind you, professional wrestlers are trained con artists. They're professional liars. That's what their job is. And, and then it was a learning process to get to where I am today and finding the right mentors. And fortunately, I've been mentored by guys like, David Marquez and Gabe Sapolsky and Tommy Dreamer and Les Thatcher. I've had some experiences with WWE behind the scenes now, and guys like Adam Pearce have helped me out a shit ton. I mean, there's a number of other talents out there that were guys that helped develop me. And then when I took over, I had this idea of what professional wrestling was to me. And for me, it was always something for everybody. A lot of companies are very niche, and I never wanted to be niche. Like when I go, I don't want to be able to go to an ice cream shop and just get chocolate and vanilla. I like Baskin Robbins because you can go there and get anything. You want cookies and cream, or this guy wants Rocky Road, they got it. If you don't come for the chocolate and vanilla, then come for the cookies and cream. So you get a little bit of something for everybody, and then that way everybody's happy. Instead of going, and hearing this kind of niche market that's out there. And then I believed in that. And then I also thought that, oh, well, these are going to give, different styles. They're going to have interesting matchups. And, it was one of those things that, like, okay, well, we can do this. So you have the great high flyers that go out there and do these aerial moves and these things that are unathletically believable. You have these great mat technicians that go out there and, they put on a wrestling array. And then you have these guys that are hard hitters that are literally beating the crap out of each other. You have beautiful women that can wrestle. They're not just beautiful, but they can actually go. They can actually get out there and work. And then you have these comedical characters that are funny and know how to put on these funny matches or have this way to entertain the crowd. And then you have these great talkers, and it was all about trying to develop a way to get it all. And I think that we've grown into something like that. Like, if you look at what we currently have, we have the Masadas and Mad Tremonts. Yes, those are the two biggest deathmatch stars probably in the country. But that's what they do. That's their forte. But then the opposite end of that, you have somebody like a Greg Excellence who, he's a fat, funny, well, he's not that fat anymore because he's been dieting, but he's a funny guy. He based most of his career about doing comedical wrestling. But then you have somebody like Sami Callihan who's going to hit you, he's going to beat the crap out of you. Then you have somebody like A.R. Fox who, that's the highest high flyer in the game. And then you bring in someone like you said, like Maxwell Jacob Friedman, like MJF. He's a complete character. He's a throwback, you have those. Then you have David Starr, the new, young, pretty boy. Look at it. And, guys like OI4K and the Private Party. And, you have them that they're these entertaining tag teams and they're fun. And OI4K are these Ohio guys and they're killers and they're, the Hit Squad, these big, tough, they'll go and throw down. And it's just that something for everybody. And then as it developed, I think the thing now that I'm focusing on and that I want to get to is what I like to call the rapper. So basically how I look at things now is wrestling. I think we've got what I wanted there. Like in the ring, I'm always going to have that. That's been the forte of what I want to do. And I'm good at that. I'm good at finding the talent. I'm good at developing the talent. But going and focusing on the rappers, focusing on the environment. One of the things I'm noticing about professional wrestling is a lot of these guys, you can see them anywhere. You can go anywhere and watch them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Maxwell Jacob Friedman's a perfect example. That kid is a bona fide superstar. I can't speak higher about him and his wrestling ability. Not just because I'm a big influence on him, but because the kid's got it. The kid, he's going to be one of the biggest stars in wrestling at some point. I mean, he's all over the place. You can see him all over. Why would you come to me to see him?
Mm-hmm.
That's what I started focusing on. So something like Tournament of Death, there's a lot of deathmatch tournaments out there right now. Why is Tournament of Death the tournament? It's because the environment that is created, it is such a great environment to be in. It's fun. It's something that the deathmatch audience really, really enjoys. So that is what I'm focusing on. That, and then making it look as professional as I can. You know, I want to get to television. Television is where I think it's where I think, you know, we need to be. When CZW was at its top and its pinnacle, we had fake UTV, we were drawing great, we were selling great, and everybody wanted to work here because they wanted to be on TV. Now, through our affiliations with the United Wrestling Network and our partnerships now with Dave Marquez and Championship Wrestling from Hollywood, it realistically is going to happen. And now it's about building that building block. So my vision is now continuously growing. And again, I've set up all these things and thought, here's our developmental center. Here's how you get to there. And then we have our own women's company, which is developing the women. And, you know, and they're not just like girls that are out there and they're not just a pretty face. Yes, we have one or two of those. But we have people like Mercedes Martinez and Lufisto. You know, we have people like Mia Yim and Leva Bates. These girls can go, you know, and they're pretty face. They can wrestle. It's getting to that vision, and we're almost there. And now it's just getting the right breaks, getting the right support, and working with the right people. And that's where I believe the United Wrestling Network will come in, and I believe that the vision is really starting to happen.
Mm-hmm. And there's one thing I'm going to ask before we start to touch on Capital. But what we were like, I remember last year, the one thing that stood out to me the most, as somebody who wasn't as familiar with CZW, you had the documentary by Vice.
You know, we've done some other stuff with Vice since then. The Vice doc was not meant to be on me originally. It just wound up that was the story that they ran with.
Mm-hmm.
I know they were supposed to come to Tournament of Death this year, and then it fell through last minute with flights, because they're based out of Canada. But they did some stuff with us down in Orlando with Best of the Best, which you'll probably start seeing coming out here, I guess, about September area. I mean, I thought it was really well produced. Vice showed a different side of what we do and what goes into it and what I go through on a personal and a professional level. Anybody that knows me in CZW, I'm probably the most hated character in the company's history. I mean, I am the guy that I am the evil Vince McMahon, JBL. I'm like them mixed into one, because I am 6'4" and 200+ pounds, and you know, and I am the boss, and it's known, and you know, I'm very a certain way, and I know how to rub people the wrong way. I'm good at it.
Mm-hmm.
But it made people look at it like, you know, hey, we might not like the character DJ Hyde, but man, we respect that guy, and we respect what he's doing, and we want to support that. And I think this year, specifically for Tournament of Death, they really came out. We had the largest audience we've had in years. You know, it's not going to be a sellout, because we could probably fit 10,000 people down there if we wanted to. But, like, you know, the biggest deathmatch tournament next to us drew probably about 600-700 people. We doubled that. You know, and the year before we probably did about 1,000, and this year we probably did a little bit over 1,500. You know, now there are a lot more expenses and things going into it this year, but it's one of those things where the people are coming out and the people are going, man, I'm coming back next year. Man, I want to see this. Man, I want to be a part of it. And I think Vice is something like that. I think when the best stuff comes out, it's going to show the opposite end of the spectrum of what we do, the wrestling and what goes into it. And I think it's going to be really well produced. I'm really happy that we have a great relationship with them, and we're going to be associated with them more in the future. I'm actually expecting them to come in and do Cage Death, which is our biggest event, in December.
Okay.
Because that's something we've been talking about recently. So hopefully they'll be able to make that work and make that happen within their busy schedule.
Yeah, that would be quite, you know, the first one was really good. It opened my eyes a lot. It opened up a lot of other people's eyes, and then that one would be even better.
Well, you can also start expecting things coming in the future with what we're doing with the changeover here. With CZW Studios, and fans out there, if you don't know what CZW Studios is, it's our version of the WWE Network. We're going to start producing our own stuff and having our own, United Wrestling type things on there, round tables and backstage stuff, and everything that people want to see. And anybody who wants to check out CZW or WSU or the 13 other promotions that are currently available on there, go to czwstudios.com right now. Use the promo code DeLariat. It'll give you your first month absolutely free. You can cancel anytime. You can go and check out this year's Tournament of Death. The rough cut is currently up there. The final cut will be up there later this week. So, you can go and check that out. Or if you just want to watch that Vice doc, it's on CZW's YouTube. So you can't miss that. Check out what we do.
Now, I mentioned earlier, there's a few guys on the Capitol roster, or who will be at the July 29th show, with little CZW ties. Obviously, we mentioned MJF, but also Jeff Cannonball has been a staple for Capitol since the inception. What are your thoughts on Jeff? And he's got his, matchup versus John Kerman coming up.
I think Jeff is going to, be one of the faster rising stars, especially in the deathmatch scene. He's a hardcore guy. I remember when I first met him, funny story, I said, what do you want to do? He goes, I want to do the light tube match. And, I make fun of him about that all the time. But Jeff's a really good guy, good head on his shoulders, and man, he's a force in the ring. There's a reason why he's the Cannonball. I know John Kerman quite well. He's a prodigy of Sanjay Dutt, John Kerman. Mm-hmm. And, man, Kerman better get ready because Jeff is that's a big boy, and he hits like a brick shit house. So, I expect Jeff to do great things. And as Jeff, he's still a very young talent, as he grows and learns, I expect to see him do great things within the next couple of years.
Yeah, I mean, they've had 2 matches before, and this one's actually no disqualification, so it's going to be really interesting to see what they can put together. A lot of back and forth between them, but the 2 other matches unfortunately ended with low blow disqualifications, so this time they're taking out pulling out all the stops.
Well, this plays right to Jeff's strengths, so, hopefully, fans will get what they want, and, if you're a fan of Capitol Wrestling or you're just a fan of professional wrestling, they'll come out on the 29th and support them.
Now, your current CZW Wire champion, Maxwell Jacob Friedman, will be main eventing the show versus Anthony Gangone. What are your thoughts on that matchup and both guys?
As I said earlier, I think Maxwell Jacob Friedman is the kid's the good. I mean, he's about as good as it gets for a guy his age, and in the future, he's only going to get better. Mm-hmm. I mean, he's undefeated in CZW. He's the current reigning and defending CZW Wired Television Champion. I mean, you're seeing his name pop up on show after show after show. The fact that he is main eventing this event just speaks worlds for who he is and what he's going to accomplish in the future. The sky's the limit with this kid. It's amazing how talented he really is and how much ability he has been able to display in such a short amount of time. As far as Anthony Gangone's one of those guys that I really like. Gangone in that ring is deadly and dangerous anytime. He's the current House of Glory champion for fans in New York. I mean, this guy has the tools. He can end a match at any time, lights out. He's on my short list of guys that I want to work with and do business with in CZW, and I've been keeping an eye on him for a while. I mean, I expect 2017 and 2018 to really be bigger years for Gangone. I think he's really starting to figure it out and take himself to the next level. This match is probably going to steal the show. I just looked at the card, and there's a reason why it's the main event. These guys are going to go all in, and they're going to put on something that is just a spectacle. Both of them have something to prove to see who's the better man.
Yeah, like you mentioned, Gangone is the current House of Glory champion, but he also, over the weekend, just beat Leo Rush for the Crown Jewel title. So,
and he's a double champion there at House of Glory. Wow.
Yeah, first double champion. So, and he one thing I've noticed about him, he can cut one hell of a promo. He's succinct, concise, to the point, and no frills. But he means all business, and he's just very smooth and crisp.
I 100% agree. Like I said, Gangone's one of those guys. I don't have very many guys locally that I'm sitting here going, all right, this is a guy that we got to get in here, and we got to figure out when, right time, right situation. He's at the top of that list right now. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'd be pretty excited to see what he can do there as well, because a very capable guy, very talented, with lots of potential. But what originally attracted you to the Capitol Wrestling and their unique brand?
Well, 2 things. One, they became a member of the United Wrestling Network. That is a very big deal to me. As I spoke, fans out there who don't know what the United Wrestling Network is, it is a collective of companies that are working together with the prosperity of television in the future and doing great business. Now, I could get into a lot of the backstage and behind the curtain details about it too, but at the end of it, it's a collective that's working together for the betterment of professional wrestling and for the betterment of fans. Also, I have a relationship with the guys who run the company. Marcus Dow and I have known, forever. It seems like I've probably known him 20, 25 years at this point.
Mm-hmm.
I know the business. I know what they're trying to do. I really like the brand. And, I really, really, really got to know Matt, who's the other owner of the company, and he's just a good guy. And I look forward to working with him. And then once they stepped into United, I literally, with every company in United, I want to take a full force, whatever I can do, whatever I can be a part of to help them, to better them. So now that I'm coming in and working with them, they're local, they're in our area, I think that us working together is a good fit.
Mm-hmm.
And trying to find companies that work together now in the independent stage and work together as a long-term thing, not a, hey, we're sharing a couple accounts or we're splitting a flight or let's do a joint show. No, but there's actually a working agreement and a cooperative. This is a good place to set it up. Capital is new and fresh. CZW has been around for almost 20 years, and now it's hey, let's help each other and benefit each other and get guys. I mean, if you're looking at a lot of the guys on the show, they have an affiliation here. We're building towards television. This is a good place for it. They've already been doing things. It's a way that we could take over the areas and really be top promotions. I mean, there's so many benefits to working with each other there. And again, they're guys they're just good people. That's usually one of the first things I look at when, I work with anybody. Are they a good person? Because if they're a good person, then in the end, business will work out. Because good people do good business. And that's what I looked at first. And then went on and I know their backgrounds and so forth and so forth and so forth. And now I'm just looking forward to debuting and seeing how I can help out backstage, whether I'm producing matches or whether I'm, helping them out with the production values or helping them get to where they want to be. And I'm sure that they've got a lot of things that they can help me with too. So, just looking at today and looking on social media, I see they're out flyering and doing everything they can to get people to the show. It's one of the things that CZW is weak on. We don't have a lot of grassroots, and they're great with that. So maybe there's some help that they can lend there. But I'm looking forward to everything that CZW and Capital, as well as myself, can do together.
So, like you said, the working relationship, it's fair to say that we could see an increase in the amount of CZW talent who's involved with Capital.
Well, I've seen that. I've noticed not just the talent, but just like the fan bases. I mean, CZW, everybody knows who we are. A lot of people don't like to say they support us, but they know who we are because they have that perception of that, we're the deathmatch company.
Yeah.
But it draws attention and it draws an eye. And, when you have someone like Jeff Cannonball or Maxwell Jacob Friedman, these are the guys who are changing the company for us. Maxwell Jacob Friedman is at the head of that change. I mean, there was a few months ago when Maxwell Jacob Friedman and Leo Rush won the Wire title and the CZW World title, we posted a picture of them together. This is the new generation. Wrestling for our generation, by our generation, is one of the things behind the scenes that we talk about. And now this is the next generation of guys that are going to take it to the next level and produce, not just for CZW, but for the wrestling industry altogether.
Coming up July 29th, you also have your matchup versus the Pain Train, Preston Quinn. What are your thoughts on Preston? And have you watched any film? And how do you prepare for that match?
I actually, I just recently got some stuff on him that was sent to me. I had to research a little bit more on him. I look at this. This is going to be a hoss fight. I mean, he's a big boy.
That's exactly that's exactly how it's being billed. Battle of the Hosses.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if he's ever ran into somebody who's quite like me. I mean, anybody who knows me knows I have no lines. I have no limits. There's nothing I won't do. There's no place I won't take it. If you give me a parameter, I'll work within the parameters. I'm not real sure how his character is out there at Capital Wrestling. I've watched a very little bit of tape recently, and I'm trying to gauge him a little bit more. But at the end of the day, there's no one who has gotten up from, DJ Hyde's lariat, and no one who has ever kicked out of it. So at the end of the day, all it's going to take is one swift lariat, and that'll be the end of him. And I'll move on to bigger and better things, and hopefully, I'll be looking at a title shot down the line in Capital Wrestling.
Yeah, because he was on here a few weeks ago, and he said that you won't be able to use your light bulbs, you won't be able to use any of that extreme stuff, in his words, and he's gonna.
Maybe he forgets that I wrestle on television every 2 weeks. Championship Wrestling from Hollywood.
Yeah.
Internationally traveled star. I've worked for WWE. I've been everywhere. I've wrestled guys from the best to the best. You name them. I've been in the ring with them, and I've beat them all. Again, that perception of what he thinks I am is not what I really am. And if I got to, I'll get in there and outclass him as a wrestler. I'll get in there and tap him out. It's a matter of, it's a matter of respect and a matter of pride and actually giving the fans, what they want to see. Because if they want me to just punch him in his mouth, then I'm just going to have to punch him in his mouth and lay him out and beat him 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, there's that misconception. But like you said, you trained as a wrestler, and have so much experience at this point that you're not tied just to one style. So, he's got a lot in his hands come July 29th. And, with two hosses like this, with the confidence both of you have and the ability both of you have, I can't wait to see what's going to go down July 29th from the Hopes Community Center in Hoboken, New Jersey.
Well, I think right now, hearing what you have to say, I actually want to give a listen to that interview. I'm going to have to go back and listen to it. I think he's going to be really surprised when he gets into the ring with me.
Mm-hmm. No, I'll definitely, I can go back on and tag you in it and send it to you, whatever you want. It's once again for the fans out there. I mean, you're already listening to it, but SoundCloud.com/LTorsPodcast. Is there any other things you'd like to plug at the moment before we get out of here? And merchandise, anything like that?
No, every fan out there can follow me on any social media, DJ Hyde _1, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, you name it, I'm all there. Feel free to send me messages, ask me questions, anything you want. You go to czwrestling.com, check out Shop CZW for all CZW DVDs, merchandise, DJ Hyde, David Starr, Shane Strickland, Sammy Callahan, and a million other guys, all their merchandise there. And CZW Studios is, on demand anytime you want, $9.99 a month. CZW, WSU, Legacy Wrestling, VOW, the list goes on and on and on. Use the promo code TheLariat. Give you 1 month free. You can cancel anytime. So if you want to just check us out, continuing, come on out, see us here at Capital Wrestling. If you're new to Capital Wrestling or you're just starting to hear about it because they're relatively new, bring your friends, bring your family. Come on out for a great day of professional wrestling done the right way. And I hope to see you all on the 29th in Hoboken.
Well, DJ, I want to thank you for coming on the Capital Wrestling Podcast. It's been an honor to have you on here and spend time with you because, like I said, you're a very busy guy. So thank you for coming on.
No, thank you guys for having me. I'll come on anytime.
And once again, we're here every Wednesday at 12 o'clock from SoundCloud.com/LTorsPodcast. You can follow us on Twitter at Capital Wrestling without the G. Follow me on Twitter at Sean Neutron. We'll be live from Hoboken, New Jersey at the Hopes Community Center July 29th. You can go to brownpaperticket.com, search Capital Wrestling, next stop Hoboken. You can catch us Saturdays live at 6:05 via the GFQ network, gfqlive.tv. Replays are at Monday on pivotshare.com and irwnetwork.com. That's courtesy of Eric Bischoff. So, Matt Ryan was on the Eric Bischoff podcast last week, available on iTunes. It's Bischoff on Wrestling. Go check that out. Go check out my other podcast, The Squared Circle Sound Off, which is on WLWstudios.com. We got a lot going on for Capital Wrestling. So we've had a really jam-packed episode, and we're going to see you guys next week when we have Andrew Zarian from Guys from Queens, and also Brutal Bob Evans is going to be on here. He's going to be talking about Capital Wrestling, his seminar, plenty of good stuff from Bob, so I can't wait to talk to him next week. Thank you guys for listening.